I'm super happy to talk to you. I've got Dustin with me. We were just chatting in the green room. And man, when I started talking to him a month or two ago, I said, we've got to bring you to my MSP friends. And really, even the vendors may be interested in what you have to say. So, this is Dustin Sitton. He is founder of Insight Automation. And I super appreciate you being with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about I don't want to I don't want to steal your thunder. I want to ask you we'll get to the problem you solve in a minute, but where did this idea for Insight Automation come from?
Well, I'm a software developer. I have been since I was straight out of college. Before college, in high school, I was a software developer. Always loved playing with software. And I was a full code developer. I was a .NET guy and ran a really large consulting firm in the mid-Atlantic for many, many years. And I saw this wave of low code technologies coming, and I knew I had to be a part of it. So broke off 4 or 5 years ago, started Insight Automation, and built the company from the ground up to focus on this style of development, and hired people that can walk and talk and look people in the eye and can handle this kind of agile development, while also having a passion for keeping their hands on the keyboard. That's a rare find, but we're finding them every day, and we've built a company solely around this concept. So
So
yeah.
I normally ask questions for my MSP clients and prospective clients, but I need to ask a question for me. When you say low code, no code, I don't know what that means. Can you tell me?
Sure. So typically, when you're building software, we're all expecting somebody to sit at a keyboard and, type out code. But
Yes.
we're all aware of programs like Microsoft Access, right? Access has been around since the 90s, and it's considered, sort of a granddaddy of low code software development. It was a database. You could build software just by being a power user, and you could write some code in it, but you could also drag and drop your way to building a decent software experience. Cut to today, there are entire platforms like Salesforce, and that's really what it is at its core, like Microsoft Dynamics, which is sort of the Coke and Pepsi of the industry, and Power Apps, another Microsoft product that we use to build platforms like this. Only today, whereas Access only can be used by a few people, these platforms can be used to run big enterprise corporations, but also work at a price point that can be used for small companies as well.
Okay,
So
got it. Thank you.
there
That's
you go.
super helpful
Mhm.
because I get it now. So I appreciate that. I don't know if we talked about that before, but I do understand now. Okay, so what is the problem that you're solving or the opportunity that you're presenting for MSPs?
So, MSPs are the leader for IT needs, for technology needs for all of their clients, right? And their clients come to them and they say, we need a piece of software to do XYZ, whatever it may be, an accounting system, an approval management system, whatever. And they're looking to them to give them advice. And most people believe their options are either buy something off the shelf and bend and contort and live with it, and integrate it with the other systems they have, or type everything 5 times when they get a new client, or build something custom, right? And there's advantages to that. You can have it exactly your way, but custom code kind of expires like milk. It has a heavy upfront cost. And what we do with low code, it blends the best of both of those two worlds together. So when MSPs are getting these requests, many clients and many MSPs don't know that these clients, as part of their Microsoft 365 subscriptions, they've already bought everything they need to leverage the platforms that they're looking for. I see clients that need a expense management system. They already own one in Office 365. They're looking for document management and approval processes and things. They already own that in Office 365. Many organizations already own everything they need to run their business end to end, and yet they're on a quest, on a search, trying to find it. So my mission is to meet with MSPs and say, hey, let's start getting you guys involved in the software side of Office 365. As more and more goes to the SaaS world, let me help you leverage that world and profit from it. There's recurring revenue to be made. There's money to be made in standing up these platforms. Once these servers are all in the cloud and they start to disappear and become SaaS products, we're here to help you take that leap. So we partner with MSPs and help them leverage that SaaS first world by acting as their partner, training them, that sort of thing.
Okay, so I want to get to use cases in a minute, but before we get there, you're hinting at a pretty decent revenue potential for MSPs, almost a new line of business, if you will. And so can you give me an idea, like some real dollars? I mean, I understand like
Sure.
we're not promising anything, but like what kind of money are we talking about?
So, in our relationships, we help MSPs profit three ways. Number one, we are experts of SharePoint and Teams and that sort of rote that day to day that every company needs. We help them learn how to use these technologies and how to implement the basics of them, for their clients the right way. There's a whole minefield when you're implementing SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams. There's right ways to do it. There's wrong ways to do it. And not all of it's necessarily the same client by client or written down. We'll help them understand that. And we just do that out of the goodness of our hearts because we want to be a good partner to our MSP friends. So that's one way. We'll help them find new offerings, with what's already in Office 365. That's number one. Number two, clients are going to come to them and say, we need better reports. We need business intelligence. We need an engine that does X, Y, Z. We need a new accounting system. If we can keep them in the Microsoft ecosystem, there's licensing money to be made. Good recurring licensing revenue that MSPs can realize. If that client doesn't flutter off and just buy something off the shelf and keeps everything together, it's easier for the MSP to manage, right? Because it all stays under that AD Azure umbrella. It's better experience for the clients, and they get recurring revenue from those additional licensing money. We can help them navigate because admittedly the licensing is complex. So we'll teach everybody the licensing rules. What's the difference between Power Apps, model-driven, Canvas, Power BI Premium versus Power BI Pro? We can help answer those questions and help them get more revenue that way as well from the licensing money. And then lastly, when I ran that big, consulting firm, I tried to figure out, how much money are we making? And, is that revenue good? And what we sort of learned for our industry is that if you're making 10% profit, that's pretty decent in my industry making software. So instead of me having a sales team, we give that 10% to our MSP partners when they bring us opportunities with their clients to build systems to run those organizations. And so we cut them in on the project side of the house. We cut them in on the recurring revenue for the licensing management, and we train them up as well. And as a result, we've forged great relationships with well over 100 MSPs at this point, some of which are the largest in the nation, some of which are, three or five guys starting out. But regardless, we're making our MSP partners stronger on the SaaS side of Microsoft 365 ecosystem.
Okay, so let's talk about use cases. And what I'm wanting to get at is let's train the MSP's ears. Like, what is it that they're listening for? What kind of trouble tickets might they be seeing that would make them say, "Hey, here's an opportunity for business intelligence," or here's an opportunity for a custom app or some custom coding or low code. Like, what kind of problems are they going to hear that may say, "Hey, I think the inside automation guys might be able to help."
So some easy ones. I've trained some of our MSP partners. We love to do lunch and learns. We show off like all these cool things we've built to, sort of start getting people familiar with what's possible. But one thing I'll train them to say during their QBRs is, when you get a new client, how many times do you type their name? If the answer is more than one, call me, right? Because we can either integrate systems together so they're only typing it once. Same holds true for the MSPs as well. Done lots of integrations with IT Glue and ConnectWise and Autotask and all those sorts of things. More about that later. But that's one way. Number two, accounting systems are always an easy lift. Everybody has an old version of QuickBooks that they've outgrown that's sitting on a desktop or on an old server that's about to die, or Sage 100 or whatever. Yes, there's the option to just virtualize that machine and put it up in Azure or AWS, but a better option is to move them to a true cloud-based accounting system. right? And we can help with that, because even if you move that server, there's still a patching nightmare. It's still on an old OS. There's still a security vulnerability there. We can help you move them to something better. So look around for what's the oldest thing on the shelf. Why don't we consult with Inside Automation to see if there's a way to move that into the cloud, as a SaaS tool instead. That's another big thing that we hear. And then two, we just say, we sort of train. Number three, we train our partners in um, how to find repetitive tasks that a client may be doing, how to find the last vestiges of things that are still on-prem that we can move into a SaaS product. So when we hear, whenever we get a new employee, we send the following 12 emails out, and then we email you guys, and then we procure a laptop, and we do this, we turn this knob. Whatever repetitive operations they're doing for onboarding a new client, project management, approval processes, we can use these tools to help. And whenever we show off what we can do using these technologies, we always hear the same. I had no idea so much was packed into Office 365, Microsoft 365. I had no idea there were so many amazing tools, already here. And I can't believe I was paying for stuff I already owned. So there you go.
It's interesting to me because I think as technologists, whether we're MSPs or in your case, low code, no code, I still have the mind of an MSP, even though I don't own an MSP anymore. We tend to spot opportunities for enhancement, problems, inefficiencies, whatever you want to call them. So when you said, how many times do you type their name? I chuckled because every time I go to the doctor's office, and first of all, I'm handed paper. Some of our doctor's offices are still not on. It's like they tried the tablets and they probably purchased the cheapest tablets possible, and they were super clunky. You had to, touch one letter at a time. I mean, it's bad, like really, really bad. And so many of our doctor's offices reverted to paper, and it's really a customer service nightmare when I am handed 12 blank pieces of paper, and on every single one I have to put my name, my birth date, and my address. One of them's for privacy, and one of them's for my medical records, and one of them's for my prescription records, and one of them is, can I bill your insurance? And they all require my name and my date of birth, and
Yeah.
many of them require address. And so it's things like that there's an opportunity for enhancement that the clients may never ask for.
Yes, that's right. And typically, when we are able to meet the client and sort of see their footprint, we can start giving them ideas like, hey, you don't have to do XYZ by hand anymore. They don't always know. A classic example that I can show off in a little bit, if you'd like, is paying invoices. I see people buying Bill.com, which is a great product, absolutely, but it's built in to Power Automate, which is built into Office 365,
Oh,
Microsoft 365. It can read an invoice, and a receipt and a business card, and then plop that information into your accounting system automatically. But people are buying tools that they already own, day in, day out. They don't know that that's possible. And many of the MSPs that I meet with, as great of technologists as they are, some of them, we can't all be masters of everything.
right.
What's happening on the software side, they don't know the extent of what's out there. They know SharePoint can be used to store files, but they don't know it's also a database, an intranet, capable of doing a lot more. They know Teams can do chat and video like Zoom, but they don't know it can be used to aggregate all the software you use in one place.
Hmm.
And some don't even know that they can use it, to have their icon on the screen and the tab on the side to submit tickets to ConnectWise and Autotask through them.
Hmm.
The best MSPs I work with, they are using these tools as weapons to differentiate themselves from the rest of the MSPs. And we're part of that arms race, trying to help them build things that better seamlessly integrate with what their clients are using every day.
Amazing. It's interesting. I was just talking to my team this week. We have so many tools, and you buy a tool for a specific purpose, right? So right now I'm using Restream to go live, and it's streaming to my Facebook group and LinkedIn and YouTube, all simultaneous, and my personal Facebook profile simultaneously, right? So what I bought the
Sure.
tool for was automation and some optimization and some things we were having to do manually. Download the thing, upload it to YouTube, like it. So we bought it because we wanted to be more efficient. And we are. But I literally, right before I got on this call, I emailed my social media guy and I'm like, hey, we're probably using 3 check boxes. We probably bought the middle option, the low, medium, high. So, what else is there? Like, I'm sure there are features inside of this tool that we don't know about and that maybe I looked at when I purchased my subscription, but there's no way. And they're probably always adding new things as well. And so, the larger companies, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't the larger companies actually have a team member who is going in and digging into the various tools to make sure there isn't redundancy and that they're actually using every tool to their best ability?
Uh, no.
Okay, interesting.
No,
Maybe it's just the best of the best that have that. That's
there's certainly
interesting to
MSPs
me.
out there that have a software side to them.
Sure.
It's very hard. It's a very different skill set, a very different optimization when you're trying to do both sides of that house. And we've seen people succeed at it, but we've seen people fail as well. But the best ones
Mhm.
stay specialized, and as I think you know, find great partners to work with and partner with to make, and we all make each other stronger. So I haven't seen, especially the ones we work with. I'm biased, of course. Haven't had a strong presence yet, but we're helping them get there. And there's a lot of MSPs that I work with that barely knew how to spell SharePoint when we started, and I would say, come with me. Watch what questions I'm asking. Watch how I set up the
Ah.
topology. Watch how I set up the security and metadata versus folders, and how to bring Power Automate in, and how, as I'm selling these things, we can bring Power BI into the mix and maybe sell some licenses there if it's in the client's best interest. But as we do that, and they watch me do it a few times, then they'll come to me and say, hey, is it okay if we do one of these on our own? I'm like, yeah. And if you run into trouble, give me a call. We're interested in the bigger projects, the systems that run the organization end to end anyway. So helping them learn how to do these things is part of what we do. And we've done stories like that for MSPs that have 100+ employees, and of course, ones that have 10. So it's not like once you hit a certain size that happens, that there's all of a sudden a person that is a software expert that comes into the mix of an organization. We've seen it at every level. So yeah.
So I know you've got some things to show on screen, but before you do that, I'd like to do just a little bit of story time.
Yeah.
Is there a particular app or BI or integration that you like created and you're really like you could geek out on it for like 20 minutes? I'm not saying you need to geek out on it for 20 minutes, but give us like an idea what gets you jazzed, and maybe even there's a shadow of a doubt in the back of your mind if you can actually make it do what the client wants it to do.
Oh my gosh, I could spend all day talking about that. I love what I do. But one of my favorite stories that I like to tell, not the biggest thing we've ever built, not even necessarily the most impressive, but I love the story of this. So we were working with an organization and they had 300 SAP licenses. SAP is an accounting system. And I said, oh my gosh, you guys have 300 accountants? And they said, no. But we put all of our invoices, whenever we get an email, we get an invoice, we put it in our accounting system, and then that notifies all of our project managers, which we have 300 of, to log in and approve the invoice, and then the system cuts them a check. And I was like, so wait a minute, how many accountants do you have? And they said, 3. And I said, so you're buying 297 licenses just for people to hit approve? And they said, well, yeah, how else would we do it? And I said, like literally any other way. So I took SharePoint, which they already own, and I said, I used Power Automate, and I said, whenever an invoice comes in, take that invoice and put it in SharePoint, notify the project manager associated with that vendor to come into SharePoint and hit approve. And they said, well, Dustin, this sounds really cool, but it won't work. And I said, oh, why not? And they said, well, the project manager has to associate the GL accounting code and the cost center and all these things that are only in the accounting system. I said, well, you also own Power Apps, and I can use Power Apps to connect to your SAP accounting system and pull those into SharePoint seamlessly and show those on the screen too. And so I use Power Automate to read the invoice. They don't have to type in the details anymore, which saved them a ton of time. It was automatically notifying them and doing reminders and multiple levels of approval that their SAP system couldn't do. They made the money back and paying me to build that using the tools they owned in 2 weeks. And they ended up with a system that was way better than what they already had, just using the tools they already owned. And they went from 300 SAP licenses down to 3. And we were
That's
seamlessly pushing
amazing.
those in. I love that story. Again, it only took us a week to build, so I didn't get to buy a boat or anything off of that.
Right.
But but I love the story of that. And that's what I love about working with these technologies. So
And
often, yeah, go
what was
ahead.
the clue to you? Like, were you just chatting with them about their business? Were you
Yeah.
asking about needed efficiencies? Like, how did you uncover that?
I knew they had 3,000 employees. It was a larger company. And I
Okay.
thought, 300 accountants. I was like, one, one out of every 10, because it's not an accounting firm. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay, this is not
I
Deloitte
was
too. So
like,
like you would
it's
expect
just
that
so many
there.
accountants. Like, what you do isn't that hard, and sure enough, and I said, well, why do you have that many licenses? And I asked those questions, and then I found out. And the reason we were in there originally was that a great MSP partner of ours said, hey, these guys need some help with SharePoint. And we did a very simple implementation, but I got to know them. And then I was able to find, other ways to help them. And our MSP partner was able to recognize a ton of recurring revenue from the licenses and revenue from our ongoing relationship. That was one project of many that I ended up doing with that company. And
Amazing.
in fact, another thing I did with them is one of the things I'm going to show off today using these tools. So there you go.
I love it. Man, it's so interesting to me because you're talking about two things that are near and dear to my heart. One is consultative selling and just being curious and being a good person. Like I would like to genuinely help you and I'm not going to do it for free, but let's see if there's a problem here I can solve. So I love that. And then the other thing you said is that you were just sitting there talking to them. You were creating a relationship. And I think
Yeah.
too many technology service providers have gotten maybe a little bit comfortable with just billing and they expect everything to be just automated and the problems are resolved. And this wasn't something that an RMM tool could do. I mean, this isn't something that is normal. It's a little bit outside the box. But if you're doing quarterly business reviews, those of you watching, if you're doing quarterly business reviews, these are the kinds of things that you'll uncover if you're having business level conversations with them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We hear all the time that we help solidify that relationship between the client and the MSP. It really shows them you are listening. You are a technology leader, by having partners like us to bring to the table, that they're not blind on that software side. Those that aren't, somebody may meet another firm that does software development, but also is an MSP. And then, that weakens the relationship. So we hear all the time,
Right.
like, wow, thanks. You knocked it out of the park, which we have to do every time because I'm always afraid, Jennifer, that not just losing the client, but losing the MSP. So we always have to crush it.
Yes.
Every time that we do a gig with a client. But as a result of that, thank you, Dustin. They love us even more now because you open their eyes to everything, why this move to the cloud was worth it, by helping them recognize all this value in the software that they have. So there you
So
go.
I love that from a revenue generation perspective. And obviously that's more consultative selling. We're finding solutions for our clients. Nothing wrong with that. That's a revenue generator for sure. But what about for the MSPs, for the technology service providers themselves? Is there one of those stories that just gets you excited that you did, let's say for a smaller MSP, not someone that has 1,000 team members, but someone who had 5 or 10 team members? Anything that stands out to you there?
Yeah, that's the most common, where they are looking to differentiate and automate some of their processes. There's two stories that recently we did that really stand out, both of which I'm going to show off.
Oh,
One
good.
was, yeah, one was, hey, Dustin, we have Bright Gauge and it's adequate, but we're looking to take, our QBRs, both what we show our clients and what we're looking at internally to the next level. I've done this many times with Autotask, with ConnectWise, with Synchro, all, many of the RMMs. We hook up Power BI up to that, and then we'll build great reports, off of that data that BrightGauge simply can't offer. And we'll blend that data with other systems in the organization, like the phone system, like other stuff they use to help people get an even better picture of who their best clients are, who's on the bubble, who's giving signs that they might leave. One of my favorite stories from this is I put a word cloud, like the words get bigger depending on what words are said in a ticket. And the number one word for this one MSP was please, which we thought was great. And then the second most used word was VMware. And they said, well, Dustin, that can't be right. VMware only makes up about 2% of our tickets. And it turned out what was happening was the ticket would be marked as what initially people thought the problem was in Autotask. And then it turned out that a super old version of VMware was the cause, and they would have to bounce virtually the box. And so the actual cause was VMware, and they would write that in the details of the ticket, but never go back and update the dropdown of what the root cause was. And so that told them, oh my gosh, our guys are not going back and updating what the final cause was. All of our metrics of where we're spending our time is off. And that word cloud that I threw on the screen as a lark saved them from that. It was really neat. So that, building reports is a big one that we do for MSPs of that size. And then two, just automating the spreadsheet. Every MSP I've ever talked to has a pricer, a pro forma, some sort of spreadsheet with their secret sauce of how they price everything out. And moving beyond that Excel spreadsheet is what takes you to the next level, what stops you from working in the business and gets you working on the business. When you can do that. And you can't usually do it with ConnectWise Sell. You need to use the tools that you already have to do so, and that you own in Office 365. But I can generate those Word documents, those files. And what's great is when your clients see you typing into a screen as you ask questions, and then the statement of work generates, the proposal generates itself and is in their inbox for e-signature while you're still in the room with them, that sets you apart from the other MSPs.
That's amazing. I just have a feeling that people that are listening right now, their brains are just going a couple of different directions. Like mine are already, my brain is already saying, "Oh, could I automate this or could I optimize that?" And there's a lot. You're just unlocking some ideas. So let's build on that. I know you've it's kind of show and tell time, right? Like you have a couple of things you wanted to share on the screen for those of us who are a little bit more visual, to give us an idea of what is possible, because I think that sometimes just seeing that and knowing that it is super helpful. So let me bring that up, and I'm going to make my screen bigger so that I can actually see your screen.
So you can see my screen, right?
I can.
So this first screen, this first thing I'm going to show you is meant to punch everyone in the face and go, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. Okay.
Yeah.
So here I'm taking this organization's phone calls, and these are all the people that work in the organization. And this is a Power BI report. Okay. And I'm taking the recordings. I'll get a little nerdy for a second. I'm taking the recordings, I'm putting them into an Azure blob, and then I'm running 3 types of analysis on them. And then I'm sucking that data into Power BI. So I can see here that Alan spends 62% of his calls talking and 38% of his calls listening. He talks 174 words per minute, and he pauses about 4 seconds when you ask him a question. Okay. Now, if I click into each of his calls, right, I can see here, here's when Josephine's talking, here's when Alan's talking, here's when Josephine's talking, here's when Alan's talking. And the green is when Josephine's responding positively to what's being said based on the inflection of her voice. The red is when she's responding negatively to what's being said. And the bold words are the action items, Jennifer, that I've pulled out. When's the demo? The 14th of next month. And I can take that data and put it into another system that the organization uses. I can glean out pertinent details to help me as I go. And I can blend this data with ticket data or something like that. Who has the, we did this at one organization, and the guys who talked the fastest had the most reopen rates for tickets. And the people that talked the slowest had the lowest. And we were able to blend that data together and find out information like that.
And so this was not native, you built this?
We took things that are in the Azure and Microsoft 365 ecosystem and put this together. This required a grand total of $50 in monthly licensing.
It's so interesting because I know we all have these moments where we're like, you know, if my this could just talk to my that, my life
Yeah.
would be much easier. And that's kind of what you're doing. It's not quite as simple as just a zap, because if it was just a zap, you wouldn't need, and the zap would not create something as pretty as this. But this is very similar to like a gong or something that a lot
Yeah.
of companies are paying extra for to analyze their sales calls. You're doing this. I mean, I assume you could do this for tickets or for sales calls or for
Yeah.
maybe team meetings or who knows.
And again,
Fascinating.
just all using tools in the Microsoft ecosystem. That's it,
Okay.
and it's all integrated, and that's all there is to it. Teams, we had a MSP ask us to build a ConnectWise bot. See this?
Okay.
And we built this for them so they could type in while they're working in Teams, ConnectWise bot, ticket number 1683596, and then it brings up all the details of the ticket, right? I can click more and see even more details. I can say, let's have a conversation in Teams and then save that conversation back to the internal notes, show all the attachments. Every time you hit add time, it says you worked on this ticket for another 10 minutes. We can train that. You can jump to the ticket in ConnectWise. We built that for an MSP to help them differentiate. They don't have to go into ConnectWise. They can see it straight from in here. And I will tell you that in my company, right, I never leave Teams. I'm in here all day. We do a lot of Teams training and things like that. People think of it as just a Zoom competitor, but it's
Right.
really a trapper keeper, able to aggregate all your software in one place. So this is Power Apps. This is Dynamics. This is the system that runs my company. I didn't enter any time in my timesheet this week. That's why it's
Mm.
blank. But here's my timesheet, right? Here's my sales, my accounts and opportunities and contacts. All my project management and resource management of my staff is here. All my invoices and the commissions that I pay my partners. They're all this one system built in the Microsoft ecosystem that I'm accessing through Teams runs my organization end to end. And we're
Fascinating.
coordinating behind the scenes with SharePoint and Teams and Power BI to do all of this. And I show this to my MSP partners. I show the sorts of charts and graphs and things that we have to help us
Mhm.
understand how our business is operating. And I say, look, if you start leveraging some of this in your organization, when you're out in the field with clients and you're eating your own dog food,
Yes.
that will matter. That will differentiate you with them. You know what I mean? I'm blending all my systems together in this one place while being careful not to sit on any one for too long. But
Right, right,
but people don't know there's an approval center built into Teams. So you can request and build these amazing approval things, situations for organizations. They're going out, buying, asking their MSP partners, like, how do we build an approval center for invoices or contracts or whatever, our sales process, or asking for even for PTO, time off, things like that. We can do it using these
Mm.
tools, right? We
And
already have it. We don't need to buy anything.
I love that because you said early on, like, this then becomes a differentiator,
Yeah.
because you don't just have to say, "Oh, we do quarterly business reviews," and for so many MSPs, it's just it's a formality. It's not really adding tremendous value to the end user. But in this case, those are all tremendously valuable things, but the end user won't necessarily, will they ask the MSP, "Oh, we need to set up a PTO portal," or
It
do you feel
will.
like the MSPs have to kinda dig that out of them?
It depends on the client, of course, but sometimes the MSP will be asked, hey, we're looking for a new accounting system, or hey, this, hey, that. If I can train them what to listen for, I say, err on the, no need to err on the side of caution. Call us in. If we're a fit, great. If not, I'll steer them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Um, and or if they're like, wait a minute, how old is that server? How old is this thing? Your file server has to go something. They'll call us in, and we'll help them assess and know what to look for, and then help them make the most of their subscription. That's
Mm.
really what we're trying to do. This is a favorite example of something that I do internally. This is my entire staff that you see here, right? And this is in SharePoint. And whenever I hire an employee, I put all their most sensitive documentation into these document sets, which have metadata and things like that, their employment agreements and benefits. My VP of operations always gets very nervous when I show this. But when I hire somebody, which I just did a few days ago, I click on that new person once I create the record, and then I've built a button in Power Automate that says Generate Employment Agreement. And I click it, and then Power Automate, again, something everybody already owns, asks me a series of questions. When are they going to start? How much are you going to pay them? How many vacation days? What's their personal email? Would you like me to prepare this for e-signature and auto send? Yes. And then it generates all my packet of paperwork, their benefits and their welcome letter, their contracts, and it sends it out to them for e-signature. Once they sign it, Power Automate hears that signature. It places all the signed documents in their folder. It generates their license, creates their Office 365 account, sets them up in all of our systems, sends me a task to procure a laptop for them, sends them their welcome information. Everything happens automated, from that point forward, from just their signature happening on the page. And
Amazing.
with our clients, with our employees, with all those things, we're using these tools to, to get rid of all that busy work so we can focus on the business, not in the business.
I love it. All right, cool. All right. I'm going to share your information because as people are popping in and out. So if you want to have an offline conversation with Dustin, chat about additionally what kind of things should you be listening for? How do you do a little bit of a better discovery? How do you uncover latent needs that maybe the client isn't even mentioning to you because they don't think it's possible? Reach out to him. He and his team are awesome to talk to. So hello@insightautomation.com. We'll keep that up there for just a second, and then I'll put it in some of the comments as well so people can find it. But what else do we need to know? Can we talk a little bit? Let's circle back to the revenue opportunity because you
Yeah.
are talking about like some six-figure stuff
Yeah.
for MSPs,
I
which is always
had
super interesting.
I, I had one MSP send 2 emails, okay, to 2 of their larger clients, and we ended up rebuilding all of their systems. And I sent that MSP 6 figures in commission checks that year, last year. I know were at IT Nation last week,
Yeah.
right? I unfortunately couldn't make it. I was at the Country Music Awards.
Oh,
And I was there because we build systems for them, using these tools. And I was able to get that through relationships like this. So,
that's amazing.
we get to work with huge organizations building systems that run those companies end to end. We work with small businesses that can't find a good fit in what's out there off the shelf. And there are certain industries that we are a great fit for, but just an introductory email, sometimes we're billing through the MSP, sometimes we bill and then cut the MSP a check, but there is great money to be made in the software side of things. If you keep your ears open, there's no need to shuttle those opportunities away. Find a trusted partner, hopefully us, and let's work together. And you'll learn a lot about this world along the way and start being able to take some of it on yourself. But
Amazing.
yeah, I will say that nonprofits are huge for us because they give these tools away for pennies on the dollar. And there's often and associations, that's big. Construction, field service, any company that like HVAC or plumbing that is looking for a way to manage their trucks in the field, these applications are great for that sort of thing. And they can go toe to toe with the established industry leaders. Professional services, we do a ton of work in, and the MSPs themselves. Eventually, all MSPs start to outgrow the rigidity of ConnectWise and Autotask and Synchro and tools like that. And they'll come to us and we'll actually build for them, not the RMM, but everything else using these tool sets that they already have as part of their Microsoft partnerships.
I love it. Already getting some good comments coming in. Jason from LinkedIn just said, awesome. Like I think we just a little bit of mind blown going on because these are
Terrific.
largely things that are native to these various tools. And you're simply making, I shouldn't say simply, oh, simply, like I could do it in my sleep. You don't want me doing it. But it's simple at its core. You're saying it's all there. We know it. We just need to get the tables to talk to each other or the tools to talk to each other or the
Exactly.
I remember like access databases. Oh, you just need to make the right query. Well, never works right the first time for me. Maybe it does for you, but that is
It
the
does not
one
for me either.
tool. Yeah, that's the one tool I could never get working. Like I'm a power user for Excel and PowerPoint and any tool except for access. It just my brain could not wrap its head around it. So yeah, I think we are opening people's eyes to some possibilities within their existing client base, and then maybe even some prospects where they're, I don't know how
Yeah,
to solve that problem, but I have a partner who probably can. And so that partner may be Insight Automation. So I love it.
I hope so. But yeah,
Excellent.
regardless of who they choose, I mean, I think this is an important message that you're delivering, today is that, we can't ignore that SaaS side of things. I think that MSPs have to start embracing it. Those that aren't, I mean, many are, but those that aren't, and figuring out, how do I become part of this, as part of this transition to the cloud? Version one was, okay, we virtualized the servers, we got them up there. Now, how do we get rid of those servers completely so that we're still charging what we charge, but we don't even have any infrastructure to manage or maintain or patch?
Right.
That's the next level. So
Yeah.
this is great.
I love
Yep.
it. All right. So if you're watching and you're intrigued, maybe have a couple of ideas of things you could systemize or automate or optimize in your own company, or maybe a couple of clients that you didn't know how to help before now, reach out to Dustin and the team. Hello at insightautomation.com. Anything else you feel like we should know or that the listeners should know before we hop off?
Oh, there's a million things, but I'm going to save those things for my one-on-ones with them. So thank
Perfect.
you. I've
Oh,
really had a wonderful time, really and truly.
yeah, this was a blast. I appreciate it. I love the visuals and the examples that helped me to wrap my head around some possibilities. I know others are saying the same thing in the chat. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too.